Welcome back to the Missouri Southern Coaches Show. We've talked offense. Now it's time to talk some defense with senior linebacker Colton Bass. Colton, thank you for being here, of course. Before we get into some specifics from the defense performance Saturday, you've seen action on the field all 4 years during your time here at Missouri Southern. There was a lot of talk coming into this year about kind of changing the culture, rebranding the energy of this program. How have you seen, what's really the difference between this year's squad compared to teams of the past that you've been on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing this year is just us being locked in on all the little details, you know. I mean, I think in years past, a lot of times we just expected to maybe just get handed a win. I don't know, but I think this year we understand that, you know, everything that we do goes towards that game on Saturday. So we just gotta, kind of like Trey said, you know, give our best and everything will take care of itself.
Definitely. And kind of staying on the topic of differences, you go from a pair of non-conference games to open the year, then first MIAA matchup on Saturday against Northwest Missouri State. What kind of unique challenges does an MIAA offense really present for a defensive unit like yours?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of good athletes over there, and then the coaches, obviously, they've got a good game plan and plenty of time to create that game plan. So I think for us, the biggest thing this week was just being disciplined, especially with our eyes, you know, paying attention to those misdirection plays and not letting them get explosive off of us.
Definitely, and that offense can be a tough unit to stop. We're going to go ahead and hop into now some of the highlights from defense with some specifics from Saturday's matchup. You guys found success right out of the gate, as we kind of mentioned earlier. Northwest Missouri State's first 4 drives resulted with 2 punts, interception, and a turnover on downs. Kind of talk to me about the game plan coming into this one and what really clicked for you guys.
Yeah, again, I think, you know, just being disciplined. I think knowing that we got to be locked in from the first snap. We can't take any plays off. And then another big thing was just everybody getting to the ball and playing as a team.
And had a big interception late in the second quarter by Kendall Huston, picking off the Bearcats in the red zone, really in the end zone, to keep them off the scoreboard. Now, obviously, any kind of turnover is a big play, but especially when the opposing team is threatening inside the 20, how impactful can a turnover in that spot be for the momentum of the game?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, anytime they get in the red zone, we're trying to, you know, create a stop. Whether that's saving 4 points by forcing a field goal or a turnover. And so, yeah, that's huge, especially in a tight game like that where it's just, there's not a whole lot of offense. Keeping them off the board there was big. So
definitely. And, you know, obviously Bearcats had a bit more success in the second half, finding the end zone twice. But as a team, we mentioned earlier, only 2 plays above 20 yards for Northwest Missouri State. So how did you guys really contain, or what was the focus on kind of containing those big plays downfield?
Yeah, I think just doing our job. I think it all goes back to fundamentals, things that, you know, we installed and talked about on day 1 of fall camp, or even back in the spring. I think it's just making sure that we're doing all those things the right way.
Definitely, yeah. And, you know, we're going to go ahead now and take a look at some of the numbers behind the defense's performance in this one. Zach Bergman, been a force to be reckoned with this year. He led the team in total tackles for the 3rd straight game with 9 against the Bearcats. As a team, the Lions stopped Northwest Missouri State on 4th down, not once, but twice, and also forced 1 turnover via that Kendall Huston interception in the second quarter. And that INT wasn't the only time the secondary held things down. Northwest Missouri State managed only 140 yards through the air in the pass game, though the Bearcats posted 217 total rushing yards on 4.8 yards per carry. So in terms of adjustments moving forward into the next MIAA matchup, how do you guys kind of maybe plan to load the box, stop that run game? Because they had a bit of success, the Bearcats did.
Yeah, I think a big thing is pursuit. The more guys that we can get around the ball, the better that should be for us. So I think just working together with, you know, no man's out there by himself. There's 11 guys. Everybody's got to do their job. So
definitely. And next up for you guys, we're going to really preview next week's matchup next segment. But for now, Central Missouri coming up. That's an offense that's averaging almost 450 yards per game. They just had 400 passing yards last week. What do you think is really going to be the focus, and how do you stop that kind of high-octane explosive unit?
Yeah, I think for us, we're just going to be focused on ourselves, honestly. Like, we feel like we put a pretty good showing out there. We know that it wasn't exactly where we want to be, but we're taking steps to get there. So I think just building as a defense off of are showing this week.
And it's going to be a fun matchup next Saturday, just over the horizon. And speaking of that one, when we come back from break, I'll be joined by head coach Atiba Bradley once again to wrap up the show and look ahead to Game 4 against the Mules. Stay tuned.